Hi, everybody.
All right, girl.
Lael gave us all these rocks to ground us. I'm going to hang really hard on this. I wrote this speech out probably 10 or 15 times in the last 3 days. And each time I wrote it, something new would come up, and something new would come up, a new story would arise, and I'd scratch out the last one. And then I started writing it on my computer screen, because that was much easier to delete. And then I realized that I didn't want to stand up here with a piece of paper and read. That what I wanted to do was just to sort of talk from some points and speak from the heart, which is pretty much my mojo. And so I stand here kind of winging it to some extent. I have my notes, but I may stumble, I may fall. So catch me. But first up, when Lael asked me to stand up here, one of the things she said was it's going to be a challenge, and I want you to be raw, and I want you to be honest. And I celebrate the passport that she gave me to do that. And I think we all, those of us who've spoken before, or anybody who can see us speaking, you'll appreciate that she has actually asked us to be in that space of honesty and clarity. And I really appreciate the ability to just be up here and not be a TEDx speaker who has to have all their, gizmos and all of that. But this is not my natural way of connecting with people. My natural way of connecting with people is one-on-one. If I'm trying to figure out something that holds true for me, I don't stand up in front of 75 people and try and figure it out. I'm normally like having coffee or going for a walk with somebody, and so. Although this is not natural for me, I said yes because I realized that there's a power and there's an energy and there's a beauty to doing the work to get here, and also to actually being here up on stage. So, a little intro. Little stage thing. There's a crowd of people over here, very loud and noisy. And there's a couple of people in the middle here who also know me, and thank you guys for coming. They're not as loud as I'm not. But everybody else is wondering, where the hell does she come from and why does she sound so strange? So I'm from Australia, and I've been in Maine for about 13 or 14 years. I'm a traveler. I love to travel. If I had to define myself as anything, it would be as a traveler. But now I live in Camden, rural mid-coast Maine, with 2 children. I'm a single mom. Did I just say mom?
You did. Right.
I'm a single mum. And I work full-time. I manage a lot of things. I volunteer. I'm very, very busy. I manage a small film production company in Camden which does nature, docs, science, and history. I love it. I love the work that I do. I have a really busy, crazy existence, and I've had a crazy year, and you'll hear a little bit about that. But I feel more fulfilled and grounded right in this very minute than I have for so many years. And it's because of the thinking and the work that I've had to do this year. Through this work, I've rediscovered really, how energized I am by connection with people, with my environment, with the cat I'm house sitting, with everything. And I'm also completely and utterly energized by the outdoors. And I'm fascinated by the connection between those two things. To me, that's going to drive my next chapter, actually, I think. And it's just been a really interesting process for me to be able to reconnect with both of those understandings of myself. The last year has been a big transition for me. I have left my husband, gotten divorced, and sort of started a whole new chapter to my life. And somebody gifted me this reading in January, and it has somewhat defined my year. And I was going to actually read the poem that Lael spoke about, which was called Live the Questions. And then she told me she was going to, so I had to come up with something else. And it was perfect, actually. It was a total, opportunities come up like this, like you're like, oh, I got it all figured out. Oh, darn. Okay. Oh, shit, as I was actually what I thought. But, and I wanted to share this with you because this actually gave me permission this year to be still. And I only have 7 minutes left, so I'm going to start talking faster. But it's called Fear of Transformation, and it's from a book that I've only recently discovered called The Essene Book of Days, which is a meditation journal. So, sometimes I feel that my life is a series of trapeze swings. I'm either hanging on to a trapeze bar, swinging along, or hurtling across space between the trapeze bars. But in my knowing place, I know that I must totally release my grasp on my old bar, and for some moments in time, I must hurtle across space before I can grab the new bar. I'm afraid I'll miss, that I'll be crushed on the unseen rocks in the bottomless basin between the bars, but I do it anyway. I must. Perhaps this is the essence of what the mystics call faith. No guarantees, no net, no insurance, but we do it anyway because hanging on to that old bar is no longer an option. And so for what seems to be an eternity that actually lasts a microsecond, I soar across the dark void called the past is over, the future is not yet here. And it's called a transition. And I've come to believe that this is the only place that real change occurs. I have a sneaking suspicion that this transition zone is the only real thing. And the bars are just illusions that we dream up to not notice the void. Yet with all the fear that can accompany transitions, they are still the most vibrant, growth-filled, passionate moments in our lives. And so, transformation of fear may have nothing to do with making fear go away, but rather with giving ourselves permission to hang out in the transition zone between the trapeze bars, allowing ourselves to dwell in the only place where change really happens. It can be terrifying. It can be enlightening. And hurtling through the void, we may just learn to fly. So as I said, this has given me permission this year to just be in that place of transition and try and live it as fully as I possibly can. And while I'm doing that, impatience is rising within me, and I'm like, where am I going to live? Where are my children going to school? What is my job? I need to fall in love right now. And all of this is going on in the back of my head, But coming back to this, I've been able to say, no, just feel those questions.
That's right.
Feel the feeling of frustration and desire and want, but don't solve it. Give yourself this time. And December 31st, I'm going to figure all that shit out. So in this process, I've been looking at my mojo. Obviously, that's the title. And I've been thinking a lot about definition, about what is a mojo. And at first, I thought it was something you looked like, which is kind of that sexy, hexy thing that you were talking about. And then I was like, no, it's something you do, right? It's those things that you do, the choices you make. And it's just not. It's neither of those things. It's what you are. It's something in here that you just don't even really know you are. And the hardest part about tonight's speech has been putting words to that. Because actually it's really hard to put words to something that's so deep inside you that you just can't see it. So what I did was, in the last-ditch effort to figure out what my mojo was, I went to Facebook. And I said to all my 794 million friends, give me a 2-word description of me, please. And here are my favorites. Charismatic optimist.
All right. Yeah.
I like the charismatic, but I love the optimist part of that. Adventurous and genuine. I love the adventurous part because that has defined so much of me. I've actually done 150 bungee jumps So that defines like the crazy stuff that I just love to push myself to go and do. But the genuine side of that is actually more in tune with my heart, and I really love that. Buoyant and inquisitive. And those of you who know me, I do a lot of this. The buoyant, especially on the dance floor, which if we could just crank the tune. No, the inquisitive is actually very much a huge part of me, and I know that comes across as quite intense a lot of the time. And perceptive and deep. And I wish to be perceptive and deep. I don't know how perceptive and deep I really am, but I guess I can aspire to that. And my favorite, which is from a dear old friend who I've known for 35 years, lovable nutter. But the hard part is, honestly, in defining Mojo is that's awesome. And I'm like, yes, that's the brand, Mish Morgenstern. You got it. You figured it out. There's actually this whole other part of me which is cynical and dark. And integrating that part of me with what is seen on Facebook, it's been a really big challenge for me this year. I've gone some deep, dark, sad, pissed off places. And pulling myself up out of that has been a really interesting challenge. And it's about integration. So, all right, I'll do this really quickly. I'm going to bring that in. So, if I think about this whole year as a journey or an expedition, because I do a lot of those, that's what I love to do most in the world, is to plan an expedition. What I'll do when I plan an expedition is I'll get a big fat map and I'll stick it up on the wall, and it's got to have all the stuff in it, and I'll grab sticky notes and I'll put them up on the wall and I'll integrate my knowledge about the place. I'll research, I'll get photographs, stories other people can tell me about the places they've been on that map. Stick it all up there, and then I sit back and I just sit on the couch and I soak it in and I look at it, and then I get up and I change it around. And I think about this year, actually, as kind of being that way for me. I've been kind of trying to make a map of my life, like where I've been, where I want to go next. Integrate all those pieces, all of it, because the map gives you boundaries. It tells you where the resources are. It tells you high points, low points, shows you where the water is. I mean, there's just so much about a map that can give you so much guidance, that if I could do that and somehow use a map to define how I'm going to move forward, how powerful that would be. But as I always do when I set up an expedition, I do that for like a year before, maybe 6 months, maybe 2 months before the expedition. I massively sit still. I massively think. I integrate. I do all of that. As I think about myself going forward from here, I've been doing a lot of that work this year. And I feel like I've got it. I think the reason I feel so grounded now, standing here, is because the map is there and I've got it. Mm-hmm. But just like I always have to do when I go on an expedition, you cannot spend your whole time looking down at the map. Mm-hmm. Because it's great and it's got massive amounts of information, but that's not why you're there. You're not there to look at a two-dimensional version of yourself. You have to put the map down, right? You have to go out and you have to make the fire in the firing. You have to watch the meteor shower when it passes by. You have to meet the person on the trail. You have to see the small flower. You have to be so present and so in your heart and so living in the moment. Otherwise, there's no point in even being on the expedition in the first place. Thanks for listening.